All right, welcome back, everybody. Um, it's off the cuff. Got another episode rolling tonight. To my right, we got Mike from Utah. How's it going?
Really, really good. Because we've sort of made this not a tradition, but we introduce what we're drinking. Tonight, I'm going very sophisticated ice and fireball.
Ooh,
Ooh,
That's what I thought
I
you'd
like
say.
it.
nice.
Nice.
All right, Rodney in Florida. How's it going in the great sunny state of Florida?
What's up? What's up? What's up? Obviously, it's humid down here. Been raining the last couple of days. I'm hanging out with a little cerveza, little Modelo, nice and
Classic.
refreshing, nice and crisp, not too watered down like a light beer. Little body in there, so I like it, man.
You've been drinking the Mexican beers lately.
I have, I noticed that recently. Funny thing though, I'm not a fan of Corona that much, but I do like
Oh, yeah.
this.
Corona is probably the worst one.
I read somewhere that they had like a taste test, like a huge study, a taste test of Mexican beers. Like Corona came in last of like
Well,
the
if
seven
Corona
biggest
gets
but they
gets like
sell
more,
more than anybody. Like they
yeah,
That's
kill
true.
everybody.
It's that
but if it
marketing,
gets
man.
warm, man, it gets so
Uh,
skunky when it gets warm. It's terrible when it's warm.
Dude, the
When it gets a
last
little
like
warm.
this
Yeah.
much of the bottle is just horrible. You gotta
Yeah.
choke it down.
All right, and I'm Roger. I'm living in Colorado. Uh, I've been working night shift the last 6 nights, so pretty tired right now. I tried to do that where I don't sleep very much on my last night so I can get back on a normal schedule. And it's been a little rough today. Um, I'm drinking a New Belgium watermelon beer. It's pretty good. It's kind of hot outside. You want something a little light and fruity. Totally feel you on that. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Nice.
Um, so before this all started, this whole podcast thing, I remember us talking. I was like, when we were like, what is it going to be about? Uh, we like a bunch of things. We like sports. We like video games. We love movies. There's so many different topics. We're parents. We all have kids. And when we were talking about all these topics, I was like, you know what? Let's just start it. We can pick something different every week or whatever. And I was really pumped about it. But one of the most things I was excited about, I think, was the topic we're talking about tonight, which is parenting. Um, it's such a huge scope. And me being a younger parent, my oldest is almost 4, but you guys, among you two, you guys have like 35 years, 40 years experience. And that's huge. And I just think it's interesting to get your guys's thoughts and perspective on the whole parenting aspect.
Well, I think there's one thing you need to realize, Raj. 4 years, like let's put 4 years into perspective into your military career. Were you a rookie after 4 years?
Oh no.
Yeah, you kind of knew what was going on, right? You had a pretty good idea what to do. But as time progressed in your military career and you got promoted or you had more rank and you had more responsibilities, you sort of, had to relearn things. You had to get better of them, but you had a baseline of where to start when you had to learn something. So even like you say 4 years, yeah, I have a 13-year-old. What do I mean? I have a soon to be 13 and a 15-year-old. But the challenges I have with my 15-year-old, dude, I'm a complete noob. Like I mean, it matters that I guess it definitely matters that I've been a parent, but I don't know that I can take, my experience and translate it all that well for a 15-year-old.
And that brings another interesting point to it is, uh, yeah, my 4-year experience is greatly used to if I only had a 2-year-old. But as your kid gets older, it's just more and more complex problems or issues or just ways you have to deal with it. Not deal with it, but I mean, you're growing with your kid. I mean, it's such a unique relationship that, like, at the same time your kid is growing and learning, you're doing the same as a parent. And it's tough, man, because, like, you know, I was like, oh, I can't wait till Ariella can walk. I won't have to do this. And now it's just like, oh, she could walk. Now she could. It just keeps adding to these things where you think, oh, I don't have to do this anymore. But it's like, yeah, you shut one door to this issue, but 10 other doors just opened up.
Right, that's a good point. And parenting is on the job training. It's not nothing you're
Yeah.
going to master. It's not nothing you could crack in a certain amount of time. It's literally building a relationship with your kids. And that's what it really is about. And those relationships are going to change from when they're 1 to 5 or when they're 5 to 10, when they're 10 to 15. So you have to grow and hopefully build a relationship with your kids.
Yeah.
Some parents say that, hey, I'm your parent, I'm not your friend. Well, I kind of disagree with that because I think, why can't you be both? Why can't you be a friend? Why do you have to check a box of being a parent? Your relationship has to grow, and you have to have better communication skills the older you get. So my kids are military kids, so they moved around a lot. So what they had to do is they had to build resiliency. So they had to lean on each other. I have a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old. So with me moving a lot in the military, I mean, having an awesome mom helps too. Like, obviously we all have great mothers that help us out. There's no way I'm saying that you can't have a kid that's raised by a single father and be an amazing kid. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that, but that's obviously helps, having a great partner to help guide and kind of build, a great kid, build whatever you call it, raise. Because it's better to get it right when they're young than to fix them when they're adults. So if you raise strong kids at a young age, it's a lot easier, in my opinion. Again, this is my opinion. I don't have any license. I'm not an expert at raising kids at all. It's just my opinion. It's easier to raise strong kids than to fix broken adults. When they're
Yeah.
adults, and they're broken, they don't have a good foundation. When they grew up, growing up, then it's just harder to do it that way. So
Yeah, it's
kind of
important.
went off track on that.
No, go
Well,
ahead, Mike.
I think I agree with you a lot, Rodney, on the whole parent and friend thing. Like I think the way that our parents raised us, well, for one, I think the challenges that our kids face now to grow up are much more difficult and complex than when we grew up. And I think to a level that, even though I think I realize how much more difficult it is, it's probably worse than I realize, and more difficult than I realize. And so when I hear, an older generation say those things and say that line about, you got to be the parent, you can't be a friend. Well, my kids, and like especially my 15-year-old, understands personalities and situations and like complex situations and relationships much better than I do. Like, she takes into account a lot more than I do when she makes a decision. Yeah, she still does silly stuff, but just to lay down the law and just say you're going to either adapt or suffer some serious consequence, like, I don't think that's built. I don't think that strategy is going to give me the relationship I want with my kid when they're 30.
Exactly. That you hit it
Yeah.
right on the head, man. What kind of relationship is where you're constantly being told you're doing this wrong, you should be doing this, you should be thinking this way. Why are you doing this? Relationships are give and take. You should be learning with as much as your kids than your kids are learning from you. Obviously, you're the dad, you're the parent. You have life experiences that you could share with them. But if you're constantly telling them you're doing something wrong, you should be doing this, this, and that, what kind of relationship are you going to have with your kids? And at the end of the day, you want to build strong relationships.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's a great point,
and
Mike.
I do think too. I mean, there's not like, I think that other strategy isn't like completely void of having some meaning. You know, we're military people, and the way you teach military people, you know, there's it's kind of hard nosed, you know. But you know, at the same time, like if you have a good squad leader, or you have somebody, a good supervisor, a good NCO above you in the real world, not in like basic training, but in the real world military, if you got a hard ass who's riding you all the time, you're not going to learn a lot from them. I don't care if it's the military or not the military, what they force you to do, or, you know, how they discipline you with push-ups or whatever they're going to do. Like,
Yeah.
that's not, you know, people in general don't respond that way.
And
And
that's
so,
yeah, that's interesting.
go ahead, Rod.
Because a lot of the military has changed even since I've been in. Is, you know, a lot of the old school mentality is, you know, do as I say, and or do push-ups or get, you know, some type of punishment of that sort. And now I think the military has evolved, and obviously there's a fine balance of do it the right way, you know, that's your job. No, you know, I'm not going to hold your hand. And then there's you know, being too friendly and too nice. Obviously there's a fine balance, and I think the military is trying, at least the army, because the army for the longest time, Mike, man, you know more than any of us, you served when the army was freaking brutal, man. Like when basic
Well,
training, you know, people were, you know, they didn't have rules in their basic training.
yeah, I mean, I mean that we had the same perspective though when I was in basic training in Fort Benning. Like, oh, the previous generations were tougher and this and that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I do hear you. Like, there is kind of there's an attitude change. Um, but you know, I really think it has to do with you have to realize that people, they just don't learn when you hound on people. Like, you tune them out, and every teenager who had a parent who harped on them a lot, 90% of what they said, you know, when it really mattered and you were feeling pressure, you tuned out because you were just waiting for it to be over. And you
Yeah.
even defiantly tuned out. Like, I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's because a lot of studies also show that it's not helpful to teach or parent that way. So even the military takes that into account. It's like, yeah, these guys are privates and we can tell them what to do, but it's not an effective, scientifically proven way to teach and mentor these people to, you know, be the best they could be. So
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
interesting.
be all you can be.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't even think of the really, when I was thinking about today's topics, I didn't even really think about how it's affected the military as well. And, you know, us being in the military or at one point, that's a very interesting take.
Well, you know, the other thing too about like the biggest shift I think in parenting from is the generational parenting. Like, if you look back from when our parents, seems like they were sort of that last generation um, to really have that style. But every previous generation was probably very similar. Like, we look back now and we go, can you believe our parents used to do that, or let us do that, or do these things, or say these things? Like, it seems insane to us. And I
Yeah.
don't think they had that same perspective. I think they were just like, I'm not going to do it like them. I'm going to do it different. Not that it was just insane. Like, there's a lot of stuff I'm like, what? I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you thought that way, or that was okay. I get blow, there's a lot of stuff that just blows me away. And I think to me, that's also a sign things have changed pretty dramatically. Because there's so much that I would just never dream of doing. Like it just seems a bizarre.
Yeah. But I mean, even I think even the time frame from, when Justin was born, 18 years ago to when Ariella was born, just the difference in parenting, I think, has even evolved then. Like, I feel like Sarah and I have a huge advantage over what you guys had to do to raise children. Like, whenever something happens and we're not sure, we pick up our phone and Google that shit. Like, we go to forums where, Moms on Call is a program we've used since Ariella was born, and she still sleeps 12 hours through the night, and that's what we use. So, like, Sarah, asking questions on the forum and getting so much feedback from so many people, and just taking that input and feeling and using what is best for you, for what you think, I think is just, I feel, because I mean, when Justin was, crying for hours at a time, like, you really didn't have a resource. I mean, did you just take him to the hospital? I mean, what'd you do?
Well, no, I mean, like you said, it is. The thing about parenting is that it's 95% effort. It's not perfection. I think kids, as long as you show effort and time, they don't care if you're perfect. Like my kids don't care if you're a perfect parent. So with that philosophy, what I have, as long as you have some kind of effort and you're showing them that, hey, we're trying to be positive and do things like that. But as far as like reaching out and having a support system, if something goes wrong, is you just got to do it. You just got to go on your own, and hopefully, things work out. You do. Um, my wife, she kind of grew up alone, and she kind of grew up without a father. So um, she took her experiences from that and has turned them around and help her kind of cope on how she wanted to raise her kids. The thing with kids, we choose to have kids. They didn't choose to be born. I mean, that sounds kind of silly, but if you choose to have a kid, I think this is just my opinion. My philosophy is that you have to make some effort to make them responsible and healthy human beings. Um, because I really don't think a kid's primary job is to make you happy. Is I think you have to guide them and make them happy. If that makes sense. Now, obviously, you want your kids to like you, and love you and all that good stuff. And I think that will naturally happen as long as you have the effort. Like you don't always have to have the answers. You just have to have the effort.
Yeah, it's pretty spot on.
I will say this is switching subjects a little bit though. When I think of your situation, Raj, it maybe it's just because I'm exhausted by it all, but to think of how hard it is to have like multiple children under say 7, like it sounds so hard. And I've
It
done it,
is.
and Robbie's done it, but to think of doing it again just seems impossible. Like, you know what? I'll work 80 hours a week. Just have me do that instead of giving me a kid. I'll do that, and I'll go work at a steel mill or something. Like
It's hard because even now recently, man, Sarah and I, like, because Ariel is get she's a three-nager, so she can have her moments. Charlotte's starting to teeth, she's crying, we're trying to get dinner, like, shit can get hectic, man. And it's like, how are we going to do this with a newborn in a couple months? Like,
Yeah, but I mean, the simple act of making your daughter breakfast and her seeing you making her breakfast, you think that's very simple and that doesn't really mean anything, but that leaves an imprint on a young mind. And I think you're ahead of the game. And that's just effort. You make her breakfast. It's simple. That's what parenting is, the effort. So I think that just, it's not a magic formula that you got to try to figure out. But yeah, so, that's just my philosophy on it.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, what always bugged me, and maybe it was kind of my the culture I'm in right now, which I won't mention, but there is an immense amount of pressure to always say that having kids is just the most wonderful thing in the world, and it's just every day is a dream, and to suggest otherwise is like, you know, a, they pretend they're shocked, but the reality is, um, it's a punch in the gut a lot when they're young, and even when your kids get older, like that stress level and the constant presence reduces, but like it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And so to say that this is so hard and that you're just totally stressed out, like I think it's changing a little bit, but there's still a lot of people who just are so afraid to just say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how hard this is. This is just crazy hard, and
Yeah.
I need a break. I need a couple days off for my kids." Like those are the things that you should say, because I think the culture of like you never take a break from your young kids is completely wrong. Like I think it's completely wrong. Parents need like real breaks from their kids to
Yeah.
recharge.
Yeah.
Um, because to me, this is what happened to me. I feel like I don't feel like I really did that great of a job when my kids were young, like your age as kids. But I always felt like I could do a good job, but maybe because I was always so stressed out and so exhausted, like I was low level effectiveness all the time. And maybe if I would just go do something, recharge, maybe even just exercise by myself for an hour, like those things would make me a better parent. But I didn't, for whatever reason, and probably my own fault. But um, like I just see, people just need to admit how hard it is. Like it's like to me, that's the hardest thing I've ever done is have kids for several years. Not
Yeah.
even close to anything else. Is not even close.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Mike, you have a bad day at work, and we all do, and we had a bad day. And even when they're adults and when they're teenagers, like, um, if you say something that is kind of insensitive, maybe to your kids, because like you said, you need a break and you're worn out, that could hurt them, and that gives you anxiety also. Like you said, if you're not recharged and you're not, you got to be healthy yourself. You got to be mentally healthy to raise kids somewhat, and you do need breaks, and you do need some time off too. And that doesn't mean you like you said that every single minute is going to be bliss with kids. Of course not, because it's hard. But
Yeah.
communication, man. Like an example I could give you is my daughter. She said she was going to get a job. She told me that, but I kind of just for some odd reason I just dismissed the idea because my little baby girl is grown up so fast. So I couldn't process the information that she just told me. So I just kind of set it aside. And then she said, "Oh, Dad, I got an interview with McDonald's." I'm like, "Oh, wow." And I was like, "It's not going to happen." For some reason, this is my little girl. She's only 16. I was like, she's not going to get this job. And then all of a sudden, she gets the job. So instead of, saying that, "Hey, wow, you went outside of your comfort zone. You got a job. You want to, make some money. That's great attributes to have when you're so young." Instead,
Yeah.
I kind of panicked and I didn't show my kind of appreciation that she got this job. So I think the communication piece between myself and my daughter got jumbled up, and she probably felt that, hey, my dad really didn't appreciate I got a job. So as far as communicating with your kids, I think that's tough. But in the back of my mind, I was like, man, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for my kid to have a job yet. She's going to be
Yeah.
working for the next 50, 60 years of her life. She doesn't need to be working when she's 16. So I said, just, make sure your grades are okay. Make sure your grades don't slip. When all her life she's been making straight A's. And I said that to her, and I'm like, so to me, it was just hard to process. And what I should have done is just say, hey, wow, great job. Because it's a big deal when you have a
Yeah.
job for your first time. It's
Yeah.
a lifestyle thing. And I didn't convey that to her. So as far as being a dad, I wish I would have, supported her in that decision a lot more. So, that's just one of the lessons I kind of learned on how teenagers think of one way, and my perception of what's going on doesn't necessarily, she doesn't know what I'm thinking. So,
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a huge. I mean, you notice something you could have done better, and like as long as you know you're trying and you know when you kind of messed up, like that's all that matters. And you tell me of that, and I think having that ability is better than being a perfect parent, because that's what helps you strive to be the best parent you could be. So dude, that's a huge, you know I think that's a big win for you, man, to put your shoes in, or put yourself in her shoes and kind of walk through that. And it is a big deal. We all remember our first jobs, right?
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
how that shaped us. And then Mike, you recently have a daughter who started a job, right? How do you feel
Yeah,
about that?
Bella worked. She worked today. She's working at a theme park. What they call it's like group food services. So like they have this theme park has a big area where like companies and stuff can come have their little barbecues, and be in these pavilions. So when these companies have these big events, she works those events, with dishing out food or whatever, pretty light duty stuff. Um, yeah, I'm glad she's doing it. I'm definitely glad she's doing it. It's one of those things. Like one of the things I really struggle with, and sometimes I think one of the weaknesses of my parenting technique, or one of the downsides, is that I don't know how to make my kids more resilient, because sometimes I worry about that. They're just not tough enough. And the things that they should be kind of riding over easily, they're not riding over easily. And quite frankly, I think there's a plus and minus to every parenting technique, and I think the minus is they're not as resilient as we were, because but our parents didn't design it that way, right? That wasn't like some thought out thing. I'm going to make my kid resilient. If anything, it's the lack of attention that made us resilient, right? It's not like it's a lack of planning, it's a lack of attention, it's a lack of those things that make us probably more resilient than our kids are. I think they're going to get there. It's just that it's going to take longer than it took us, which is fine, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So this job, long story short, this job I hope is like, expose her to things that just aren't easy. And maybe they're not like super difficult, but it's a grind. It's a little bit of a grind. There's no joy there. You're not there to have fun. It's just sort of, but you're not getting beat up either, So
yeah. I always attributed my ability to make friends really quickly and interact with people to being a military brat. Since we always moved, we'd get friends, and then once we became best friends, it was like, oh, we're moving to Guam. It's like, great, I gotta start all over. And I think Rodney's kids have an advantage probably over your kids in that aspect of resiliency, of just having to start from scratch all the time. And I remember I didn't like it when I was a kid, but now that I'm an adult, like, I'm thankful for it, because like you said, Mike, it wasn't by design. It was like, tough shit, we got to go, we're in the military. um so that's another interesting aspect of the military, making kids resilient in that aspect of being able to adapt quicker than the average person, I would say.
Yeah, so my son, he was in 11th grade, and I told him, hey, we got to move. So he's bummed out, obviously, because he had all these friends. He was in Germany for 4 years, and I was kind of worried about him adjusting. to for his senior year to be in, let alone in a different country in a different school. So I had to leave all these good friends behind. And the senior year is supposed to be your best year in high school, supposed to be, anyways, right? You
Yeah.
make lifelong memories in your senior. So I was a little worried about that, but he pulled it out through, man. He surprised me because I thought his grades might suffer a little bit, but his senior year, his grades were the best he's ever had.
Oh
And I
wow.
think that being so close with his sister and having gone through that in the past and knowing what to expect and kind of, figuring out on his own, I think that obviously helped him to adjust. So I mean, like you said, this resiliency, they'll figure it out. Um, it'll come, Mike. Like you said, it'll come later on, but I think Anna is as it comes from an Air Force background, so she knows, how to build. And she's been through some kind of some up and downs too in her life too. That I think that she'll somehow pass that along and try to mold her kids to be more resilient in that way. So
Yeah. Um, so do you guys currently have any challenges you're going through right now in parenting, or are you kind of hitting a nice streak of kind of even balance, not too much left and right going on? Rodney, let's go with Rodney.
yeah, so I mean, you're always going to have challenges. Like my son, he's 19 years old, so he's not a fully legalized adult yet, and he's not a kid anymore, somewhat. So he's in that gray area of just trying to figure out what he really wants to do, where his life's going to go. So he's kind of a little bit in a rut right now, to be honest with you. He is taking college classes. He did work, quit his job a couple of months ago, so he is trying to hit the books really hard with college. So I just want to make sure that I'm there for him. That there's no rush to move out if that's what he's thinking. He's always welcome, in our house, obviously. Just make him feel like, some people move faster than others. He doesn't have to, you know, compare to other people. He doesn't have to try to please anybody else but himself. Just as long as he's moving forward, it doesn't matter what speed he's going at. He
Yeah.
might take a little bit more time to finish college than anybody else. Who cares? Just as long as you're just trying to move forward, I'm trying to convey that to him. So I think he's a little bit in a funk right now, just because. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of friends. He does keep in touch with his friends in Germany and all the friends that he's met along the way through
Yeah.
social media and stuff like that. But like I said, he doesn't really have too many friends here. He doesn't have his license yet. He's working on that. Taking his time with that. And then just to be there for them, just to say, hey, I'm here. Take your time and make him feel comfortable with himself, because, man, you know what? Another thing I'm pretty concerned about is the internet, right? So the cell phone. Obviously, we didn't have cell phones growing up, and what they really are supercomputers. They have a computer, which can kind of translate into a brainwashing machine, if you think about it, right? So if you don't have the
Yeah.
right mental health, yeah. If you're young and you don't have the right mental health, or your headspace is not in the right space, you could go down a rabbit hole on the internet and find someone that relates to you if you try hard enough. And that leads into like fringe groups, that leads into weird ideologies that you could get into just because you want to feel accepted. You're lonely. Those are the dangers of the internet. I mean, there's obviously a lot of good about the internet and stuff, but I mean, the internet could be such a dangerous thing. And that's one of the things I just kind of watch out for, that making sure that they don't fall down a dangerous rabbit hole with these weird groups where they get into like weird things and stuff like that. So that's just one thing I get concerned about older kids.
Yeah.
I think that's if you could only pick one issue that would be the biggest concern, it would be that one. Because I don't really think, like, we're the experimental generation here, and our kids are too. Like, we're the experimental parent technique, and our kids are the experiment, right? Because we don't really know what's going to happen or what's the real effect of all this stuff when they're young. I know a lot of and there's a lot of different ideas on how to handle the internet and cell phones. I know a lot of people around me are like, well, my kid's not getting a cell phone, and I'm barring them from doing those things. And I get why, because it's very fearful. But I don't agree with it. My strategy is they're going to have to deal with these things eventually. And so, it's sort of like a lot of dangerous things. If you can expose dangerous things to kids at a young age in a safe way, by the time that it's time you have to let them free and it's really dangerous, they're prepared. And so, I don't know what would happen if you gave a 19-year-old a cell phone after he gets out of the house.
Oh, gosh.
And now all of a sudden, it's like now all of a sudden I get everything. And it's just like, it's the same thing that happens when you repress a kid and he's 19 and away from the house and he doesn't know what alcohol is. It's the same thing. They freaking binge drink themselves into oblivion. And I happen to know this because that was me. To not expose and pretend like, oh, I know you see those things over there. Just don't mind them. Don't even touch them. They're not for you. Don't worry about it. Like, that is the dumbest strategy of all time. And it seems so obvious, and it's played out a million times. I don't know that my strategy for the cell phone thing is good. I kind of think it's not great, but I think it's better than, no cell phone or no this. But yeah, that's a big concern. I mean, for me, I'm worried about the balance of parenting and giving my 15-year-old freedom, because I felt like at that age I didn't have a lot of freedom. My parents were hovering pretty good over me.
Yeah.
And so, I don't want her to just run and do what she wants, but at the same time, I want to trust her enough to do some things and go out, and just like, we're going out. Where are you going? Well, I'm going with these people. What are you doing? I don't really know yet. We're just going to go do something. Well, that's what I did. Like, we don't know. You just want to be with your friends.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a scheduled activity. I'm not 7, right? So that's the thing that always worries me. Like, you're always paranoid when she's out with her friends. It's just like, it's always there. She's not in the house. I'm worried. So that's my challenge.
Yeah, that's gotta be hard. I mean, especially when I think about the stupid shit I did when I was in like high school, man. Like, and I think about like, if my, daughter is gonna do things that I did when I was in high school, like, I would be terrified. And yeah, I mean, but at the same time, I think there's a big difference with both your guys's relationships with your kids, is that there is that trust, because you guys do talk to each other. It's not, my way or the highway type relationship in either of your houses with any of your kids. I would like to think that, your kids could talk to you about, something, and this is obviously from the outside looking in, but it to me, it seems like you guys both have a very open and honest relationship, and your kids are older. You could do that. I mean, for me, it's like, I don't have that ability yet because my daughter is only 3 years old, but from the outside looking in, I want to have that type of relationship with my kids, from what I see with what you guys have with your kids, if that means anything.
Yeah. All good points. I agree with a lot of the points, but like I said, when you're gonna have 3 daughters, Rod, 3 girls. So, dude, you're gonna want to have, you're gonna want to be a great father, obviously, but you're gonna want to have your kids come to you.
Yeah.
To get that, to bounce off your perspective when they become young ladies years from now, and they start dating or they start doing anything. And if they're scared to come with you for advice about their boyfriends, like, you're going to be the typical father is, hey, you bring a boy here. I got 10 shotguns. I'm going to shoot him. I'm
Yeah.
going to you don't want to do that. You want to
Yeah.
make your daughters feel comfortable that say, hey, dad, you know what? I'm dating this guy, but for some odd reason, he likes to burn like rabbits or something. Is this guy good? Who better than to talk? Like, who better to talk to you than to you? So you
Yeah.
I
want that
know who
open
knows more about
communication.
burning rabbits than Roger.
So
Yeah,
if he
absolutely.
yeah. So so you could say this guy has some red flags. Just watch out for him, and you want your daughters to come to you. That might be an extreme example, but yeah, man. It's all about just building relationships, communication with your kids, and being a parent, man. It doesn't stop when you stop supporting them. Just because you just stop supporting them, like I know some people are like, when my kid's 18, they're out of the house. Like, they're on their own. They need to take care of themselves and learn about life and this and that. No, you gotta continue to be a parent till you're 99, till you're
Yeah, until you're
till you die.
gone, man.
That's right. So it's never mission complete to stay in the Air Force
Well,
terms or
I mean,
military
even
terms, but
yeah, I mean that's a huge point to me because the minimum standard to live like what our lifestyle that we're all very closely related in lifestyle. Like the minimum standard to do that for an 18-year-old, like to get to where we're at, is a lot higher, right?
yeah,
There's no way they're going to do it just like scraping through high school. Like, I think if you join the military, you could do that. Like you can do that if you join the military, but everybody doesn't want to join the military. Like,
Yeah.
and so they need like that. The minimum standard of education is like 12 years now, or 10 years at a minimum. Well, hold on. Horrible math, way beyond high school. Let's just say that. Hey, that does remind me, Raj, you're going to have all girls. The only thing I think I've learned about raising a girl is that I realized when my daughter was like 13 or 14, 13, young 13, is that one of the tools that I have that I didn't even realize I had was that I could at least use myself as the example of who she should be looking at. And so, or dating, right?
Yeah.
Not that she has to date someone like me, but just, the example of, you're just a decent person, cares about other people. You're not a complete knucklehead. So if I feel like that's sort of what I do, not overtly, but maybe subconsciously, is, I know you're interested in this guy, but who is this guy? Like, tell me about him. And I think I use myself as the example of just character that she should be pursuing, right?
Yeah.
And when you're absentee and you're not there, I think that's the whole daddy issues thing, right? It's like, who do I really need to go date? Well, I don't know, because I've never been around a decent man.
Yeah.
And think of how many dirtbags there are in the world. Like, there's a ton of shithead dudes. And you know what's even funnier? Like when you start to, I started to know this in my job because I was, the majority of the people I work with are female, and they're middle-aged women with kids, just like us, in high school or graduating high school. And so, my job, I'm close to a lot of people. I talk to them a lot of different people. And so I see their kids graduating. I see their pictures on social media. And the bottom line is, even through high school, even through their senior year, boys are absolutely dorkies, just dorks. Like they're so far behind the females. And when you see the pictures, if you look at them that way, if you look at a prom picture, it's like you've got all these mature females and then a bunch of dorks next to him. And I don't even care if he's the star quarterback. He's dressing like a dork. He looks like a dork, and they behave like dorks. Like I've got a ton of dudes in my house, and a ton of girls, all 15 years old, some of them 16, a little bit older, so they're in high school. And I thought I was like had it together in high school. I mean, these guys are fine. They're nice kids, but they're dorks. They're way behind the females. And it's a weird relationship. Like you're teaching your more mature daughter who's, got a crush on a dork. Like, what do you, Like it's weird.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Mia definitely matured a lot faster than Justin, definitely. So it's I don't know if it's biologically that way. Some females just mature faster than adults. But
I think that is kind of true
yeah.
to that.
Mhm.
If you notice, the next time you look at a prom picture, look in there, and you'll see like, lovely ladies, beautiful dresses, great hair, and then the dude next to him is like thinking he's being cool with the ugliest outfit on. They just look like dorks because they're trying to be extra cool. They're trying to be something that they're not. And yeah, it's just they're just so much more awkward than the girls. It's so weird.
I'm gonna have to do that 3 times.
So Raj,
You'll be good at it by the third one, man. You'll be really good.
so with you having three daughters, man, on a scale from 1 to 10, how scared are you?
I
10
don't
being,
know.
hold on, 10 being that you're like, oh my God, what the hell am I going to do? And 1 being, this isn't that big a deal.
I don't want to say.
Maybe scare is the wrong word, but
Yeah, I'm not really scared. It's kind of weird. Like ever since, Ariella was born, like I don't think I've ever really been scared. I don't know if that's just me being naive on being a parent and not really realizing the responsibility I have of, raising human beings to be good people in this world. Um, and I do have those thoughts every now and then where it's like uh like when Ariella acts up at daycare, and she's been doing this lately. Um, and she kind of had this bully phase when she was in her last class where she was like the oldest one. She wasn't really being challenged, like everybody was just younger, and she was just like a bully. And we were like, what's going on? Um, and I remember buying a book like, on how to treat some issues, with toddlers when they're misbehaving or doing stuff like that, and reading the type of ways to, try to help that process. But yeah, there was a few times where I've had like, oh shit, am I raising a bully? Like, I don't want like, I feel like I'm the most caring, loving person out there. Of course, we all think that, but I don't want my girl to be a bully. But recently, so last Friday, the daycare called and they're like, you have to pick Ariella up from daycare. She's not listening. She's misbehaving. She needs to be picked up. And it's like, holy shit, like we've never had to pick our girl up from daycare because she's misbehaving. Like she wasn't listening to the teachers. She was uh the day before she like pushed a kid off like the playground, like, and I think it's just because she's in a class. She's been in there for like a year. There's been a lot of turnover because of COVID. Excuse me. They're, I don't know if they're not being as strict or they just don't have experienced, caretakers in there, a lot of young people in there. And, that's when I get that, I'm scared moment where she misbehaves, and it's like, I'm not teaching her to hit people, I'm not teaching her to not listen to people. I have these talks like every day before she goes. It's like, we're going to have a good day, we're going to listen, we're going to take a good nap, we're going to do this, like. So those, during those moments, I get a little scared because I don't want to raise a hellion, a girl that, doesn't listen. But overall, I haven't had the, oh shit, I'm gonna have 3 girls moment. Like I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, you have 3 girls, it's gonna suck. It's like, man, having my first girl has made me a better person. Um, and I love it. Like having a second girl's gonna make me, has made me a better person, I feel. And having a third girl is gonna make me a better person. So it is what it is. I'm not too terrified yet. I mean, maybe when they're older, I'll have those oh shit moments, but as of right now, you know, it just
All
might
right.
be
Well,
me being naive.
I,
I don't
I'm
know.
gonna go ahead and answer for him. Answer the question for him, Rodney.
all
I think
right.
he's at like a 4. Like it's not bad. He's at like a 4.
Yeah, I agree, man. But you're in rare territory where we have three girls too, so you got to spin that as a positive. Like, not very many people have three girls in a row too. So, I mean, you could take that, as a kind of as a positive and spin it that way. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's natural to have those feelings, Raj. My kids have behaved. It's like I said, you just gotta um, do the best you can, and that's what it's going to take. It's not going to take, there's not going to be a magic formula on raising these kids. They're going to act
yeah,
up. They're going to be kids. So this goes with the territory.
yeah, and that's the same thing. It's like, okay, so she's just being a 3-year-old. Like 3-year-olds push each other all the time. Like, I mean, you got 20 of them in a room and all they do is play all day because their curriculum isn't, that great because the turnover is so crazy. Like, am I being too harsh on my 3-year-old, or is she just being a 3-year-old?
Well, I was smiling through that whole thing because I think one of the things that's hard to do is have perspective when you're in it. And I think the perspective is that like a ton of kids are going to do that.
Yeah,
And,
like,
and like, this is not a signal of like, oh, they're going to be a bad person. Like, how many times you heard, you know what? They just went to jail. And you know what it was? When they were 3, it all started when they were 3. They started
yeah,
bullying kids in the preschool. That's when it started. It
yeah,
was never corrected, or any of the other silly rules. Like, we did this to my kid, and that's what made him a great adult, or that's what made him a great person. And like, no, it's not. It's like it's the huge amount of time you spend with them and how you behave in front of them.
yeah,
Like, they're going to emulate you
yeah.
eventually, right?
That,
It just takes way more than you think it does.
yeah, that, and she's like super smart, man. Like, and that's why I think she's just not getting challenged in daycare. I don't know, but like when I took her to the, a barbecue on Memorial Day, like, no, they couldn't believe she was only 3 years old. They were like, I would have guessed she was like 6. Like, there's no way she's only 3. Um, so of course, that made me feel proud, and it had my chest puffed out and all that stuff. So, and then of course I got drawn back to earth when daycare is gone. They're like, yeah, your child's misbehaving. She can't listen. Pick her up now. It's like,
Man, that ain't no big deal.
yeah,
I mean, it's only a big deal that, if it like is a more long-term thing, and somebody's screwing with her or something, somebody's messing around, or there's some
yeah,
outside influence that you're not aware of. But other than that, like,
forget about it.
forget about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel. All right, so who do you, out of you guys, who is the more strict parent?
Just me and Rodney.
No, out of you and your spouse, you and
Oh,
Anna.
me and Anna. Definitely
Yeah,
Anna, without
Anna.
question.
Yeah, definitely my wife. Definitely, she's
And
very
that's,
fair, but she's strict.
Yeah, Anna is she drives hard at everything. Like, she pushes hard. Like, she's a type A. I don't know. So there are times when I would prefer to do things and lay down the law, but she moves so much faster than I do. Like she's on top of things, and she's managing and taking care of it like so fast, which is fine because you know like I think her and I have a pretty good balance, because there's sometimes when she's just like, I can't do this. Like, this is you now, because I'm going overboard, or like it's stressing me out too much or whatever it is. We have a pretty good balance that way, but she's hitting the she's laying it down the harder.
Yeah, that's how it is for me and Sarah too. Which is, I don't know, is that coincidence or is that just a female type role that they take? I don't know. But I think in most relationships, maybe you see it that way. Most normal relationships, I guess.
Um, I think maybe the majority would be that way. But I do know, like of all my friends, I do know probably 5 of them, the males are the more strict ones. But in some of the cases, it's cultural too.
Yeah.
The cultures are so different, it's a mixed marriage. So they come from very different backgrounds and their strategies or how they were raised. And so, that can be very different.
Yeah. It's interesting. All right. So let me hear maybe your favorite embarrassing story, prank, or dad joke you've pulled. Rodney.
Ooh, that's a rough one, man. So I tell you, the kids, they do make fun of me a lot, which is I don't mind because I think the kids should be kind of comfortable enough. And it kind of, honestly, it kind of took me a while to get here. But if your kids are comfortable enough to make fun of their parents, not in a mean spirited way, kind of
Yeah.
like in a way that not mean spirited. So
The way we
a lot of
made
times
fun
when
of
I
dad.
come, yeah, like we make fun of our
Yes.
parents, right?
Yeah.
In a loving way, right? So they do make fun of me that way a lot. And it's the things I do. But sometimes when I get home from work and I walk in the door, and the first thing I'll say something because it's quiet and they'll be sitting like eating a snack or something, and I'll say something. As soon as I say something, both of them will crack up and start laughing. And I'm like, what is so funny? And I go, we knew exactly what you were going to say when you walked in. And we had a bet on what you were going to say. And they just know me so well and what I'm going to say that they make their own little side jokes and bets on what am I going to do, what am I going to say, stuff like that. But as far as embarrassing stuff, nothing really comes in my head except for if you try to be that cool dad that knows something about a certain subject and you try to say, hey, this and that, dude, they know more than you, man. They have the internet just like you, dude. Don't try to act like you're an expert on some subject because they're gonna come right back at you and make you look stupid. You're like, damn, man. It's like, what the hell? It's like they don't have the internet like you do. So you're trying to be this cool dad that knows information. Nah, dad, this is how it's supposed. I'm like, okay, fine, but
So,
man,
it sounds like you got burned by that one or two times.
Yeah, I've got burned like that a long time because they're just so smart nowadays, dude. Like they literally know like you said, these smartphones and internets, man, they're zoned in, they're locked into the information superhighway, man. So stuff like that.
That's hilarious. What about you, Mike?
I did come up with something I'm really proud of recently. So Gabe, my son, he loves to now if he's in public around his friends, he's not like this. He might be when he's playing video games, but he loves to people call me the greatest at whatever we're talking about. He's never done it before, but he'll get people say I'm the best at that, right? And he'll always super brag. He's never done it, but I'm the best. Or he did it once and I'm the best. Like we went to Top Golf. I never taught him anything. We Top Golf. He's the best. I'm pro at Top Golf. So I was always like, this sort of gets you. It's like, you've never even done this. What are you talking about? But he's just saying it to be funny. So I came up with just one time he said something and I said, well, I'm a bear. He's like, what? And I'm like, well, if you're the best at that, then I'm a bear. Like it was just real random out of nowhere. And so every time thereafter, he would just do his normal thing. And I'd immediately respond with, I'm a bear. and I was so surprised. Like he would really catch it, and he would be like, he wouldn't like it because any other response before that, like he would just laugh off and keep going. But
Yeah.
for some reason, when I say now, he'll go, "Well, I don't know." I'll go, "I'm a bear." He'll get mad. So that's the only good comeback I've ever had, and it's just like it's kind of a dumb one, but it worked. So now I had that in my back pocket. It's always ready. So now he's careful about what he says. And then one time I used it wrong. He's like, "That was dumb. You didn't even use it right." So it's gonna be around for a while. I'm a bear.
Yeah. So you're talking about Rodney was talking about how his kids flame him all the time, man. I don't know. I don't know. Mike's kids, man, they flame Mike and Anna like no other, man.
Yeah.
Getting ruthless with what's Anna's foot problem. The
Yeah,
Plantar
they flame my
fasciitis.
wife too.
Well, Anna's a bit of a is it hypochondriacs that think they're sick all the time. She got like a little sliver of that running through her DNA, and so if she's got plantar fasciitis, it's gonna lead to cancer. If she's got like some soreness, definitely is the end is near. So it can't just be something simple that'll go away overnight. Like if my back hurts, oh my gosh, something's really wrong. You just worked in the yard all day. That's your back short because you don't exercise. So that's what it comes from, is because she's always got some ailment. And the plantar fasciitis, it's real. She's got it. But the kids love to pretend that she doesn't, rub it in her face.
all right.
And it's also the way she says it, plantar fasciitis.
Plantar. Yeah, they always give her shit about that. It's pretty funny. So here's an interesting question that thing that I thought of. So Rodney, you were really huge into movies. In fact, my love of movies stems from your influence of when I was a kid, and you would point out, hey, check out this scene where the camera doesn't stop, it's all one take. Goodfellas, they're going to the through the kitchen, that type scene. And you can see I have movie posters on my wall back here. What is it like to have your kids kind of have that same love for movies, and how what was it like watching your kid relive, like finding out that Darth Vader was Luke's father? Like how cool was that to see, like, live?
Dude, it's great. Like, it's awesome to kind of really, like you said, relive movies through their eyes. I do that all the time, and there's so many movies where I love doing that, and as part of it is kids emulate. They kind of want to be like you sometimes, or they're interested in things you're interested in automatically. So if you show that you're interested in a certain kind of hobby, not just movies, but music, anything, they tend to gravitate toward that when they're younger. But yeah, I mean that it's a blast, man. We talk about movies, we talk about directors, we talk about soundtracks. Justin will say, "Hey, man, this dialogue is just not right," or "Why is this filmed at a weird angle?" And I didn't like that. It was just too slow. Why is this movie just not edited? Like he talks like how I kind of talk when I was in the movies a lot too. When he does active viewing instead of passive viewing, where he tries to find certain angles and certain things. The caveat to that is you'll think you'll like a movie that you think they'll like, and they'll totally hate it. And you're like, whoa, you didn't like that movie? I love that movie. Like, no, Dad. And they'll start pointing out why they don't like it. And you're like, wow, you know what? Yeah, you're kind of right. I didn't even notice that before. So you have another critic that kind of knows movies that kind of goes against you. So that's kind of neat in a certain way. But
Yeah.
it's a blast, man. I like that. So
That and was that just did that just come natural? I mean, I know, I guess it came naturally between us two. Um, but like sometimes I think like, am I gonna be forcing my daughter to like video games, or is that something that's just gonna come
it's
naturally?
it's just gonna come naturally because they're most likely not, I mean not every time, but they're gonna from my kids is maybe because we're more of a close knit family, just because we moved around a lot. We moved like 7 times in their childhood. Like every 3 years we were moving. So like I mean like so maybe we're just I don't know if it happens naturally. Maybe I just got lucky. Um, but the way I talk about movies, it's if you're passionate about music or art or movies or anything like that, it can become very contagious. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? If I see
yeah,
someone passionate about something, I'm like, wow, he's really passionate about that. Maybe I should, look into that and stuff like that. So maybe I've rubbed off on them a little bit towards that. So
yeah.
if it
Well,
happens
absolutely.
naturally, yeah, right, yeah. So it happens naturally. It happens naturally. If it doesn't, it's nothing you did wrong. It's just not into what you like. So I mean,
Yeah. Do you feel the same way, Mike? Like, do you think Gabe got his love of gaming because of you, and you guys have like that that bond because you're both gamers? Like, yeah,
No, Gabe's a much bigger gamer than I ever was. So yeah, I like gaming. Um, and I go through phases where I'll play and by any standard, not a lot, but a lot for me. Until now where I'm like, I want to start again, like I'm getting the itch to play a lot more. But Gabe, like honestly, I haven't transferred. The only thing I think I've really transferred is that my kids and maybe my oldest teenager would in public say she doesn't like it, but in private she say she would. Um, like national parks and hiking and stuff like that.
yeah,
My family does look forward to that, and so when we plan those things, they get pretty excited. Um, so that's the only thing I think I've really transferred, and my kids are doing a lot of things I'm interested in, but like Bella, she's not, they really did go out and find their own things. Like I don't know that but again, even with me, like I don't know that I have one thing or even two things that I've spent a massive amount of time on, right? Because it's just not my personality. Like I deep dive into things for like a month, two
Spanish Gold,
months.
baby.
Spanish Gold, like I mean, you name it, and I've done a deep dive on it for like 2 months, and then I
Yeah,
sort of I kind of satisfied whatever I was doing. Um, but I am actually jealous of Rodney's movie hobby, um, because I do love that stuff, and but again, it's sort of like I don't have like the only seriously deep knowledge I have on any one subject is my job, and but I could probably speak to an okay level on a lot of different things because that's kind of my personality.
yeah, yeah. You
and
kind of
it doesn't
jack.
happen all the. It doesn't happen with everything you love. Like I love sports. I watch it all the time, but that didn't translate to Justin that much at all. Like he's not really a
Yeah,
sports guy.
yeah.
So
That's
it's
true.
it's hit and miss. Yeah. So it's hit and miss on certain things, man.
Yeah. Um. So I got like one more thing before we wrap it up, and I'll just get your guys' input on it from a newer type parent. I see an incredible bond between both of you and your children that you don't see with every, parent and child. Uh, does that come naturally for you guys, or is that something you have to like put extra work in? Um, I
It'll,
good.
no, go ahead. Finish the question.
It's just like I don't know if it's just because of our generation didn't really have like a super tight bond between our parents, even though obviously we loved them and we got along and all that stuff. But it's just a little different, like seeing your kids' generation have a really super tight like bond with you guys. Like, is that something that just came naturally because of your parenting style? Or is it something you really had to like push for?
From my understanding, that's a great question, and I don't know there's an answer really. To me, it feels like it happened organically. It really does. I don't think it's something that I set out to do or, hey, I want to have this type of bond with my kids. And from my perspective, I think it just happened naturally. And I think just kids, give kids a lot of credit. I mean, they can sense if you want to spend time with them or you're enjoying their company, or they'll be able to sense that from you. That child bond, they'll sense it. And the more they sense it, and all that is like I said, spending time with them, talking to them, asking them questions, man. Instead of like as soon as you come home from work, you might be tired. Instead of say, hey, just leave me alone for a second, or say hi, say what's up, what did you do today? Fake it or something. Just if you act naturally, if you show that you have a little bit of effort, I think it'll come naturally. I honestly do. I don't think you have to worry about that at all, Raj. I think you and Sarah, I think that will come naturally towards you. But that is a good question.
Yeah, for me, I would mostly agree with Rodney. For me, there was some things that I forced myself to do that I felt like were against my instincts, but they were really bad instincts. Like maybe I learned those, but like I remember, you know, it shouldn't be surprised to anybody who knows me that I've lost my temper on my kids more than a few times. Um, but early on, when they were little, I sort of felt like like especially Gabe, for whatever reason, it was Gabe. Like I guess because he's the boy, and Anna gets after the daughters, right? And I get after Gabe harder than I should. But it was early on when I realized that it's sort of okay for me to do that, but I better immediately follow it up with, all right, that's over with. Like, come give me a big
Yeah.
hug and let's go do something fun, right?
Yeah.
And so if I discipline my kids, I try to put that discipline as quickly as I can behind me. And to me, like the part that I had to force myself to do was immediately sort of snap out as quick as I could the whole disciplining parent mode and go back into I'm your parent and I love you and what are we doing next kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Um, and so now after a long time of that, like it's definitely natural now. But you know,
Yeah. Because I have trouble doing that too. Like, Ariel will do something and I get angry and you know, sometimes it's hard for me to be like, okay, it's over with, Roger. Like, you're back to being normal. Like, that's a great point to practice that, because that does take practice to be able to brush that off, because in their minds, especially at a young age, like that it's over and done with. Like holding a grudge, for an
yeah,
hour with a 3-year-old isn't conducive at all. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
hope
I mean,
that's one of my weaknesses is holding grudges, man. That'll tear you up. So I'm getting better at it, but like you said, that's a great point, Mike. Because you have to have a short memory, and you have to be the first one to take the first step, and
yeah.
kind of like you got to make the first step of healing the relationship too. So that could be very difficult to do, and I'm still working on that too. So good point.
Nice. All right. Any last thoughts or comments, Rodney?
No, I mean, I really think that parenting is just enjoy it. There's going to be ups and downs. Just take the effort to spend time with your kids. And like I said, I mean, and things will fall into place. Um, and take care of yourself too. I think Mike hit on this earlier in the podcast. If you're not healthy yourself, you're not going to be the best for your kids. I mean, either. So, and learn from your mistakes and be humble enough to admit you're wrong in front of your kids. Like some parents don't want to admit they're wrong in front of their kids. I think that's a
Yeah,
mistake.
that's a
I
huge
think
thing.
Yeah, I think you need to admit that you are human. You will make mistakes, and you will lose your temper. And then hopefully, and at the end of the day, as parents, we don't really care about money. What we care about is our kids will live long, healthy lives at the end of the day. So that's my kind of my takeaway.
It's great advice. Especially about, admitting, and I think past generations to be like, hell no, I'm not admitting, I was wrong to my kids. Like they'll
Still
toughen
don't.
up. Yeah.
Still don't.
So that's huge. And when I mess up, like I tell Ariel, it's like, I'm sorry I overreacted, or I yelled at you when I shouldn't have, but that's huge point. I like that. What about you, Mike?
I'm going to repeat a third time for effect. Apologize to your kids when you should, when you've wronged them. But the other thing I think I would say is that the little things. I don't know how to phrase this correctly. The little things don't really matter, and the little things would be like an example would be Ariela's getting in trouble at preschool, or or whatever. Like, yeah, you got to deal with it, but the big things are that you're there every day. You show her a ton of love. Like,
Yeah.
you give her good advice. And all the little crap in between that everybody frets over, especially mothers, they fret over how great of a parent they are, much more than men do. All those little things don't matter. Like if your kids fails at something, as long as you're there to love them and help them get back up and teach them a lesson and show them how to be a good person, those are the big things. And those are the things that last and that you do every day. The little things, man, they don't matter. It's like, if all the things like, oh, you have this rule and you got to do this rule and you got to have that rule and you got to, all these parents with all these rules, those are the little things that don't matter, and they don't produce great people. And they don't produce great relationships long term. So the little things don't matter, and the big things are the only things that matter. That
Yeah.
doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I do agree with a lot of that. And parenting is just ever evolving. How shocked would we be if our kids were doing a podcast 20 years from now and they're like, how did our parents let us do this? Like, what were they thinking? I don't know. I don't think that would be too far-fetched. Because
you know what? I'm gonna disagree with you and say it will be, because like if they say I can't believe they let us do that, it's only because we didn't know better. Like there's new information we didn't have.
yeah.
But the information our parents had of just like, we disappear for like 6 hours at a time and they never once asked where we were, like just stuff like that. Like,
yeah, but we
I'm
think that's crazy
Yeah.
now. But back then they're like, oh, well, I was gone for 12 hours when I was a kid. 6 hours ain't
Yeah,
shit.
and like I would be left at home on weekends at like 11 years old, all weekend. Like what? Like just stuff like that. Like there's no way. There's just no
Yeah.
way.
I mean, like I said, it's ever evolving. I mean, there's never going to be a time where it's like, okay, we've learned everything we know about parenting. This is where we stop, and this is going to be it. But yeah, I think this has been one of my favorite episodes. Got to hear a lot of great stories and advice from you guys. Um,
Sorry.
next week, we'll do it again.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
All right.